Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am Dr. Amna Sajid and today we are going to discuss acidosis and alkalosis. So this is the last lecture on acid-base homeostasis. First of all, I would like to define a few terms. The first term is acidemia. Acidemia can be defined as extracellular fluid pH less than the normal physiologic range. So when the pH of blood becomes less than 7.35, we say that acidemia has occurred. So what is acidosis? The underlying disorder or pathology which leads to acidemia is known as acidosis, and usually these two terms are used interchangeably. So whenever you hear about acidosis, you should know that it means pH of extracellular fluid less than 7.35. Alkalemia can be defined as extracellular fluid pH greater than the normal physiologic range. So whenever pH of blood becomes greater than 7.45, we say that alkalemia has occurred, and any pathology or disorder that leads to alkalemia is termed as alkalosis. And again, like acidemia and acidosis, these two terms are used interchangeably. So acidosis can be further divided into metabolic acidosis and respiratory acidosis. And an easy way to remember what is meant by metabolic acidosis is that whenever acidosis is occurring and bicarbonate levels in the blood have decreased, this means that the type of acidosis is metabolic acidosis. And why we say that decreased levels of bicarbonate concentration are associated with metabolic acidosis? Why? Because whenever bicarbonate loss from the blood occurs due to any reason, it can lead to acidosis, because bicarbonate ions are the major base that are present inside the blood, and they are responsible for buffering any excessive hydrogen ions that are being produced in the body and that are entering in the blood. So when bicarbonate levels fall inside the blood, it can lead to acidosis, and the type of acidosis is called metabolic acidosis. Similarly, if excessive acids are being produced in the body leading to excessive entry of hydrogen ions in the blood, then those hydrogen ions will be sequestered by bicarbonate ions, and in this way bicarbonate levels will also decrease. So any type of acidosis resulting from either a loss of bicarbonate ions from the blood or addition of hydrogen ions into the blood, that kind of acidosis is known as metabolic acidosis. So what is meant by respiratory acidosis? So respiratory acidosis is characterized by increased partial pressure of carbon dioxide. So the increased level of volatile acid, that is carbon dioxide, leads to a type of acidosis called respiratory acidosis. And carbon dioxide, as you know, contributes to lowering of pH inside the blood because it reacts with water to form carbonic acid, which can dissociate to form bicarbonate ion and H positive ion, and this H positive ion increase can lead to fall in pH. So the type of acidosis resulting from increase in the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood due to any reason, that type of acidosis is called respiratory acidosis. So now I am going to discuss the different compensatory mechanisms that come into play when metabolic and respiratory acidosis happen. So what is meant by compensation? Compensation means that the body tries to bring the pH back to normal through different mechanisms that we have discussed in detail in the previous lectures. So in case of metabolic acidosis, when pH falls below the normal physiologic range, what mechanisms come into play to bring the pH back to normal? Number one are the extracellular and intracellular buffers of the body. For example, bicarbonate buffer, phosphate buffer system, etc. Secondly, in order to increase pH of the blood, ventilation rate and depth increases. In fact, low pH is a stimulator of ventilation rate. So what is the benefit of increasing the rate and depth of ventilation? As ventilation increases, more carbon dioxide is removed from the body, and as more carbon dioxide is removed from the body, it would not be able to contribute hydrogen ions to the blood, leading to an increase in blood pH. So these two are the uh, temporary mechanisms in case of metabolic acidosis. The long lasting effects, compensatory effects, are achieved by the renal mechanisms of acid base homeostasis. And in the case of metabolic acidosis, what will happen? Hydrogen ion secretion will increase, coupled with bicarbonate ion reabsorption and bicarbonate ion production inside the renal tubular cells, and these mechanisms will work together to bring the pH back to normal. So what are the compensatory mechanisms that come into play in case of respiratory acidosis? So in respiratory acidosis, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide inside the body is increasing, and it is always due to some pulmonary pathology, some pathology in the lungs. So the lungs are not able to function properly, and this is resulting in increased retention of carbon dioxide in the blood. So carbon dioxide cannot be removed from the body via the lungs. So the compensatory mechanisms for respiratory acidosis would be provided by chemical buffer systems of the body, again extracellular and intracellular buffer systems, and the renal mechanisms of acid base homeostasis. Now the respiratory mechanism cannot come into play because this acidosis is itself occurring due to some respiratory pathology. So the renal mechanisms would be the same as was in the case of metabolic acidosis. In respiratory acidosis also, hydrogen ion secretion by the renal tubular cells will increase, coupled with bicarbonate reabsorption as well as bicarbonate generation inside the renal tubular cells. So alkalosis can also be further divided into metabolic alkalosis and respiratory alkalosis. Metabolic alkalosis is characterized by increased amount of bicarbonate in the extracellular fluid or decreased concentration of hydrogen ion inside the blood, and this results in pH of the blood becoming greater than the normal physiologic range, that is greater than 7.45. And what is respiratory alkalosis? Respiratory alkalosis is characterized by a fall in partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the extracellular fluid, and this fall of carbon dioxide levels inside the blood lead to a decrease in hydrogen ion concentration, resulting in a type of alkalosis called respiratory alkalosis. So now I am going to discuss the different compensatory mechanisms that come into play to bring the pH back to normal in case of metabolic and respiratory alkalosis. So in case of metabolic alkalosis, compensation is achieved by the chemical buffer system, which are the intracellular and extracellular buffers, and a decrease in ventilation rate. So what does a decrease in ventilation rate achieve? So when ventilation is reduced, then it leads to retention of carbon dioxide inside the body, leading to increased partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood, and carbon dioxide can form carbonic acid, which can dissociate to give hydrogen ions, and those hydrogen ions will serve to bring the pH down in case of metabolic alkalosis. So what are the renal mechanisms that come into play in case of metabolic alkalosis? In case of alkalosis, hydrogen ion secretion is going to reduce, and as hydrogen ion secretion reduces, there is less loss of hydrogen ions in the urine, and hydrogen ion concentration inside the blood will increase, and this will serve to correct metabolic alkalosis. Moreover, due to reduced hydrogen ion secretion by the renal tubular cells, there is going to be incomplete reabsorption of the filtered bicarbonate that is present in the tubular fluid. So more amounts of bicarbonate ions will be lost in the urine, and this will serve to decrease bicarbonate ion concentration inside the blood, and this will serve to bring the pH of the blood down to the normal physiologic range. So what will happen in case of respiratory alkalosis? First of all, alkalosis uh, will be corrected by the chemical buffer systems that are the intracellular and extracellular buffer systems of the body. Secondly, again renal mechanisms will come into play, and they will be the same as in the case of metabolic alkalosis. So whenever alkalosis occurs, it results in reduced hydrogen ion secretion by the renal tubular cells, and this reduced hydrogen ion secretion is coupled with incomplete reabsorption of bicarbonate that has been filtered and is present in the tubular fluid. So increased retention of hydrogen ions inside the body plus increased loss of bicarbonate ions from the body, this serves to bring the pH back to normal in case of respiratory alkalosis. So this slide shows the important causes of acid-base disorders. First of all, we are going to discuss acidosis, causes of acidosis, and then we will discuss causes of alkalosis. So first of all, we will discuss the major causes of metabolic acidosis. Metabolic acidosis may be caused by other conditions as well, but right now we are only going to discuss the few major causes of metabolic acidosis. So first of all is diabetic ketoacidosis. So diabetic ketoacidosis occurs in diabetes mellitus, especially type 1 diabetes mellitus, which is also known as insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. So in case of type 1 diabetes mellitus, there is an absolute deficiency of insulin inside the body, and if insulin is not given exogenously, it can lead to a condition known as diabetic ketoacidosis, which is an example of metabolic acidosis. So what happens in case of type 1 diabetes mellitus when insulin is not given exogenously? So due to an absolute deficiency of insulin inside the body, our body cannot utilize glucose. So when glucose is not being utilized for energy purposes, so in order to provide energy to body cells, other mechanisms come into play, and one of those processes is ketone body formation. And ketone bodies are acidic in nature, and they lead to decrease in pH of extracellular fluid. So in type 1 diabetes mellitus, if left untreated, it can lead to a condition called diabetic ketoacidosis, which is an example of metabolic acidosis. So diarrhea also leads to metabolic acidosis because there is a loss of bicarbonate ions from the gastrointestinal tract in case of diarrhea. So when bicarbonate will be lost from the body, it will lead to decrease in pH or increased concentration of hydrogen ions inside the blood, as adequate bicarbonate base is not available to sequester the excessive amounts of hydrogen ions. So in renal failure, especially in patients of chronic renal failure, there is decreased hydrogen ion secretion and decreased bicarbonate reabsorption and production by the renal tubular cells. This results in retention of hydrogen ions inside the body and loss of bicarbonate ions in the urine, leading to metabolic acidosis. So in shock, especially hypovolemic shock, the function of the renal tubular cells is affected, and it can lead to metabolic acidosis. So what happens in case of aspirin overdose? Now aspirin is a drug and it is acidic in nature. It is also known as salicylate or salicylic acid. So whenever an overdose of aspirin occurs, there is addition of acids or hydrogen ions inside the blood, leading to metabolic acidosis. So in addition to aspirin, if ethanol poisoning or methanol poisoning occurs, it can also lead to decrease in pH of blood or metabolic acidosis. So what happens in case of sepsis? Sepsis can be defined as a systemic infective process, and it affects all the systems of the body. So all the mechanisms that are involved in acid base homeostasis will be disturbed in case of sepsis, leading to metabolic acidosis. So now we are going to discuss the main causes of respiratory acidosis. Respiratory acidosis, as you recall, is characterized by an increase in partial pressure of carbon dioxide. An increase in partial pressure of carbon dioxide always occurs in case of hypoventilation, when the ventilation rate is reduced. As ventilation rate is reduced, carbon dioxide will not be removed from the body effectively, leading to retention of carbon dioxide inside the body, and this will result in a type of acidosis called respiratory acidosis. So in different pathologies of the lungs such as COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, carbon dioxide will not be exhaled out of the lungs, leading to respiratory acidosis. There will be obstruction to exhalation in COPD, resulting in carbon dioxide retention inside the body and respiratory acidosis. The same will occur in case of airway obstruction due to any cause. Whenever the airway is being obstructed due to any reason, this will result in decreased exhalation of carbon dioxide from the body and retention of carbon dioxide inside the blood, leading to respiratory acidosis. So drug overdose, for example, those drugs that decrease the function of brain, for example alcohol, etc. If such an overdose occurs, it can lead to respiratory acidosis, because in such cases the function of chest muscles or respiratory muscles is reduced, and as muscles will not be able to function properly, this will result in decreased ventilation rate or hypoventilation and retention of carbon dioxide inside the blood, causing respiratory acidosis. So in case of chest trauma, once again chest muscles might be affected, and this will result in decreased ventilation rate, as the patient will not be able to breathe properly or use his chest muscles properly, leading to respiratory acidosis. So in pulmonary edema, there is accumulation of fluid inside the lungs, and in this case again the function of lungs will be affected, resulting in reduced exhalation of carbon dioxide out of the lungs, and respiratory acidosis will occur. So any neuromuscular disease that affects the respiratory muscles or the chest muscles, it will result in hypoventilation and ultimately respiratory acidosis due to retention of carbon dioxide inside the blood. So this was all about the main causes of metabolic and respiratory acidosis. Now we will discuss metabolic alkalosis and respiratory alkalosis. So these three are the major or the common causes of metabolic alkalosis, because metabolic alkalosis usually occurs quite rarely, but it can occur, and these three are the major causes. So first cause is the loss of gastric secretion, for example in case of vomiting. As you know, the gastric secretions contain a large amount of acid in terms of hydrochloric acid. So whenever vomiting occurs, it results in loss of hydrogen ions from the body, because hydrochloric acid will be lost along with the gastric secretions, and this can result in metabolic alkalosis. So overuse of antacids, how does it lead to metabolic alkalosis? You will learn inshallah in later stages that most antacids contain sodium bicarbonate, and if overuse of sodium bicarbonate occurs, it can result in metabolic alkalosis as bicarbonate levels inside the blood will rise, and more bicarbonate base will sequester hydrogen ions present in the blood, leading to a decrease in hydrogen ion concentration and metabolic alkalosis. So, potassium wasting diuretics. These diuretics also lead to metabolic alkalosis because they increase the flow of fluid inside the renal tubules and inside the nephrons, and this results in uh, changes in hydrogen ion secretion and bicarbonate reabsorption in such a way that alkalosis occurs. So potassium wasting diuretics, all potassium wasting diuretics, they lead to metabolic alkalosis. An exception with regards to diuretics are carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. Those type of diuretics, they do not cause metabolic alkalosis, but all other types of diuretics, they can lead to metabolic alkalosis. So, respiratory alkalosis will always occur in case of hyperventilation, because respiratory alkalosis is characterized by a fall in carbon dioxide partial pressure inside the blood. So in case of hyperventilation, when the ventilation rate is increased, more carbon dioxide will be exhaled out of the lungs, leading to a fall in partial pressure of carbon dioxide inside the blood, and carbon dioxide will not be able to contribute hydrogen ions to the blood, leading to decrease in hydrogen ion concentration, or in other words alkalosis, and the type of alkalosis will be respiratory alkalosis. So it is very important to remember that hypoventilation causes respiratory acidosis and hyperventilation causes respiratory alkalosis. So in case of hypoxia, whenever there is a fall in oxygen pressure inside the body, hyperventilation will occur, and this can result in respiratory alkalosis. As the ventilation rate increases, it gets rid of more carbon dioxide from the body. And in patients who are suffering from anxiety, usually because of anxiety, they tend to hyperventilate, and in this case respiratory alkalosis occurs. So at high altitudes there is hypoxia. People experience hypoxia, which stimulates the ventilation rate, resulting in hyperventilation and ultimately respiratory alkalosis. So whenever people go to a high altitude, they may suffer from respiratory alkalosis. In pregnancy and fever as well, hyperventilation can occur, resulting in increased removal of carbon dioxide from the body and fall in partial pressure of carbon dioxide inside the blood, that ultimately leads to respiratory alkalosis. So these were the major causes of acid base disturbances in our body. So this slide shows the characteristics of primary acid-base disturbances, that are respiratory acidosis and alkalosis and metabolic acidosis and alkalosis. But before moving on, I would like to point out the normal values of different parameters. So pH of our body fluid is taken as 7.4. The normal range is 7.35 to 7.45, but for convenience purposes we have taken the average 7.4. And the hydrogen ion concentration comparable to this pH is 40 milliequivalents per liter. So the normal hydrogen ion concentration in the blood is 40 milliequivalents per liter, and the normal carbon dioxide pressure inside the blood is 40 millimeter of mercury, and the normal bicarbonate ion concentration in the blood is 24 milliequivalent per liter. So all these values correspond to a pH value of 7.4, which is taken as normal, and you should know all these values because you will be given different questions in exam depending upon these values, these normal values. So first of all, we will discuss respiratory acidosis, and it is a repetition of all the things that we have studied till now. So how do we know that acidosis is occurring in the body? Because pH is falling, it is becoming less than 7.4, and hydrogen ion concentration inside the blood is increasing. So by looking at these two values, we come to know that acidosis is occurring. So now we have to determine what type of acidosis is occurring, whether it is respiratory acidosis or metabolic acidosis. So the easiest way to remember is that in case of respiratory acidosis, there is going to be increased partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood, which is shown here. So acidosis resulting from increase in partial pressure of carbon dioxide, that is known as respiratory acidosis. So by looking at these three values, you can make a diagnosis that it is respiratory acidosis, and an additional clue is provided by bicarbonate ion concentration, because in order to compensate for this decrease in pH and increase in partial pressure of carbon dioxide, bicarbonate ion levels inside the blood will increase in order to sequester the additional or excessive hydrogen ions that are being contributed to the blood by increased partial pressure of carbon dioxide. So this is the compensatory mechanism. Increase in bicarbonate levels inside the blood, it is the compensatory mechanism in case of respiratory acidosis, which is occurring due to an increase in partial pressure of carbon dioxide. So this was respiratory acidosis. Now compare it with metabolic acidosis. We come to know that acidosis is occurring because pH is falling and hydrogen ion concentration is rising. So this is acidosis. But what type of acidosis is this? We can get a clue by looking at these two values. So remember, metabolic acidosis is characterized by a fall in bicarbonate levels. So whenever pH is decreasing and bicarbonate ion concentration is decreasing, this means metabolic acidosis is occurring, and the body tries to compensate by decreasing the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood, as less carbon dioxide means less hydrogen ions that would be formed from carbonic acid, and this will serve to decrease the hydrogen ion concentration to some extent. So in metabolic acidosis, how we determine it is metabolic acidosis? pH is falling plus hydrogen ion concentration, bicarbonate ion concentration is falling. This right here is the clue that can help you in diagnosing metabolic acidosis. And in respiratory acidosis, pH is falling and partial pressure of carbon dioxide is rising. So this type of acidosis would be respiratory acidosis. Now we move on to respiratory alkalosis. So respiratory alkalosis is always caused by a decrease in partial pressure of carbon dioxide. So in alkalosis, pH will be greater than the normal range, hydrogen ion concentration will fall, leading to alkalosis. So we determine whether which type of acid base disturbance is this. This is alkalosis because pH is rising. And what type of alkalosis? We can get an idea by looking at partial pressure of carbon dioxide. If it is falling, it means it is respiratory alkalosis. And to compensate for respiratory alkalosis, bicarbonate levels inside the blood will fall. And as bicarbonate levels will fall, less base will be available to bind with hydrogen ions. So more hydrogen ions will be present as such in the blood, and this will bring the pH back to normal. In this way, the body will try to bring the pH back to normal. So how to remember how to determine whether the alkalosis is respiratory or not? Look at partial pressure of carbon dioxide. If it is decreasing significantly, it means it is respiratory alkalosis, but if it is increasing, then it means it is metabolic alkalosis, as can be shown here. So alkalosis is occurring, which means pH is rising and hydrogen ion concentration is reducing. And how do we determine what kind of alkalosis is this? By looking at the partial pressure of carbon dioxide and bicarbonate concentration, because in metabolic alkalosis, this type of alkalosis is characterized by significant increase in bicarbonate ion inside the blood, and as increased bicarbonate ions are present, they will combine with hydrogen ions, removing hydrogen ions from the free hydrogen ions from the blood, resulting in decreased concentration of hydrogen ion and increased pH. So we can determine diagnose metabolic alkalosis by looking at pH and by looking at bicarbonate levels. pH is increasing, this means it is alkalosis, and it is being caused by increased in bicarbonate levels. So this is metabolic alkalosis, and metabolic alkalosis is compensated by increasing the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood, because the increased carbon dioxide will form carbonic acid, which will dissociate to give hydrogen ions, and this will attempt to increase the hydrogen ion concentration, which was originally reduced. So I hope this is clear. Go through it carefully and remember these normal values, as questions will be posed in your exams using these values. So this is a repetition of the previous slide. Kindly go through it carefully and thoroughly. This is the repetition of the same concept. It depends upon you whether you are able to grasp the concept using the previous slide or this slide. It is okay both ways. Please have a look, and if you are unable to understand, you can mail me your queries, but this is a repetition, just a repetition of the previous slide. Okay, now we are going to discuss anion gap. So what is meant by anion? First of all, you should know what is meant by anions. Anions are negatively charged ions, and in our body, when different acids, volatile or non-volatile acids, are formed, then they can dissociate to form hydrogen ions and the respective anions, which are the negatively charged ions of an acid. For example, just to give an example, HCl. HCl is an acid and it can dissociate to form H positive ions and chloride ion. So chloride ion in this case would be the anion. So whichever acid is being formed inside our body, it can dissociate to form H positive ions and it can give rise to an anion, which is the negatively charged ion part of the acid. So what is anion gap? Anion gap is basically the difference between primary measured cations and primary measured anions in our body. So what does this mean? So different anions are present inside our blood, and most of these are being contributed by the acids that are being produced in our body. So what are cations? Cations are basically positively charged ions. For example, sodium ions, potassium ions, calcium ions, magnesium ions. So different cations and different anions are present inside our blood, but usually we do not measure the quantities of all these charged ions. We only measure the quantities of significant cations and anions. For example, in case of cations, we usually measure sodium ion, potassium ion, and in case of anions, we usually measure chloride ion, bicarbonate ion. So these are the primary measured cations and primary measured anions. And the difference between the values of primary measured cations and primary measured anions is known as the anion gap. So in simple terms, we can also say that the degree or the value by which the primary measured cations are greater than the primary measured anions in the blood, that is known as anion gap. And it is not a real anion gap, because in our blood, in order to maintain electrical balance, the number of cations is equal to the number of anions. But as I mentioned earlier, we cannot measure all those anions and all those cations. We only measure, for example, sodium ions in case of cations, and we only measure bicarbonate ions and chloride ions in case of anions. And when we measure these uh, cations and anions, so there is a difference between the value of cations ion concentration is greater than the measured anion concentration, so that difference is termed as anion gap. But this is not a real difference, because in reality the number of cations equals the number of anions in our blood, but all these charged ions cannot be measured. So anion gap normal value ranges between 88 and 16 milli equivalent per liter. So if the difference between the concentration of sodium and the concentration of chloride and bicarbonate ions combined ranges between 8 and 16 milli equivalent per liter, we say that it is normal. So the concept of anion gap can be further explained using this slide, and hopefully it will help you understand better. So these are two different formulas that can be used to measure the anion gap. In one formula, in case of cations, we are only measuring sodium ions and not measuring potassium ions, because normally potassium ions inside the blood, their concentration is very low, so they are not significant. But the potassium ion concentration becomes significant in certain patients. For example, patients suffering from chronic renal, or patients suffering from renal failure, because in such patients potassium ion concentration can rise significantly, because potassium ions cannot be excreted efficiently by the kidney. So in that case, we do include the concentration of potassium ions while measuring anion gap. So right now I am going to focus on this equation only. So what is anion gap? It is the difference between the concentration of primary measured cation and the concentration of primary measured anions, and the sum of these two is much less than, not much, but it is less than the sodium ion concentration. Therefore there is a difference, and that difference is known as anion gap. So if we subtract the concentration of chloride ion and bicarbonate ion from sodium ion concentration, we get a value, and that value is anion gap, and normal range is 8 to 16 milli equivalent per liter. So with the help of this slide, I am going to try to explain another concept. Why is anion gap important? So metabolic acidosis, which is characterized by a decrease in pH of extracellular fluid. So, and metabolic acidosis is characterized by either bicarbonate loss or addition of hydrogen ion to the blood. Whenever bicarbonate ion concentration inside the blood falls, it can lead to metabolic acidosis, or whenever hydrogen ions are added to the blood due to the production of fixed or volatile acids, it can lead to, not volatile, because of the addition of fixed acids, it is also termed as metabolic acidosis. So now metabolic acidosis on the basis of anion gap can be further categorized into normal anion gap acidosis and high anion gap acidosis. So what is meant by these two terms? As you can see, anion gap is the difference between sodium ion concentration and the concentration of these anions combined. So what happens in case of metabolic acidosis? In case of metabolic acidosis, either bicarbonate ion concentration is going to fall, or the concentration of fixed acids is going to increase, and concentration of fixed acids ultimately results in increased concentration of hydrogen ions or increased addition of hydrogen ions to the blood. So whenever metabolic acidosis is being caused by bicarbonate ion concentration fall, then that type of acidosis, metabolic acidosis, is called hyperchloremic metabolic acidosis, because when bicarbonate levels will decrease in the blood, then chloride levels will increase in order to maintain electrical neutrality inside the blood. As one anion is being reduced, then the body will try to increase the levels of the other anion. So whenever metabolic acidosis occurs due to a fall in bicarbonate concentration, then the body will increase the concentration of chloride ions inside the blood. So that type of metabolic acidosis will also be characterized by hyperchloremia. So when this compensation will occur, then the anion gap value will remain the same, because bicarbonate levels have decreased, but in order to compensate for this decrease, chloride levels have increased to the same degree, and this will result in no change in the value of anion gap. The anion gap, which is calculated by this equation, it will remain the same. So metabolic acidosis, which is being caused by bicarbonate ion concentration decrease, that metabolic acidosis can also be termed as hyperchloremic metabolic acidosis or normal anion gap metabolic acidosis, because in this type of acidosis, chloride ion levels inside the blood is increasing, plus there is no change occurring in the value of anion gap. So this is normal anion gap metabolic acidosis or hyperchloremic metabolic acidosis. So what will happen if metabolic acidosis is occurring as a result of addition of fixed acids to the blood? So when fixed acids or non-volatile acids are being added to the blood, what will happen? They will dissociate into hydrogen ions, which will result in acidosis, plus they will also dissociate into their respective anions, and when those anions will be added to the blood, this will result in increase in anion gap. It will result in change in the value of this anion gap. That is why whenever fixed acids are being added to the blood resulting in metabolic acidosis, that type of acidosis is known as high anion gap acidosis, because now the value of this anion gap is changing, and that is also normochloremic anion gap, normochloremic metabolic acidosis, because chloride ion concentration is remaining the same. So this is a repetition of the previous slide. In this slide, the two types of metabolic acidosis have been explained. So normal anion gap acidosis or hyperchloremic acidosis is characterized by bicarbonate loss. So whenever the amount of bicarbonate ions decreases inside the blood, then the body tries to compensate for that by increasing the level of chloride ions. This is done to maintain the electric balance of the blood. So bicarbonate levels decrease, At the same time, chloride ion levels increase to the same degree, and this results in hyperchloremia. Plus there will be no change in the value of anion gap because the decrease in bicarbonate is being compensated equally by increase in chloride ion concentration. So bicarbonate loss when leads to metabolic acidosis, that type of acidosis is called normal anion gap acidosis or hyperchloremic acidosis. Now whenever metabolic acidosis is happening due to net gain of acid in the body or due to the addition of fixed acids to the blood, that type of acidosis is called normochloremic or high anion gap acidosis. And why normochloremia? Because in this type of acidosis bicarbonate level loss hasn't occurred, so the body hasn't tried to compensate for bicarbonate loss by increasing chloride ion concentration, so chloride ion concentration remains normal. That is why it is known as normochloremic acidosis. And why it is termed as high anion gap acidosis? Because the value of anion gap increases. And why it increases? Because now different anions are being added to the blood and the concentration of anions now become greater than the concentration of sodium ion. So now we subtract the concentration of sodium ions from the combined concentration of all the anions that are being present in the blood, and they include chloride ion, bicarbonate ion, plus also the different anions that are being added to the blood as a result of addition of fixed acid into the blood. And this results for this results in an increase in the value of anion gap. So anion gap value increases, it becomes greater than 16 milli equivalent per liter, and now the value of anions have become greater than the value of sodium ion. I hope this concept is clear. Now we move on to the next slide. In this slide, the different important causes of the two types of metabolic acidosis have been shown. So first of all, high anion gap acidosis, which is also called normochloremic metabolic acidosis, and it is characterized by a net gain of acid inside the blood, which can happen in case of diabetic ketoacidosis, lactic acidosis when lactic acid is being added to the blood, chronic renal failure in which different fixed acids cannot be removed from the body via kidneys because of renal failure, aspirin poisoning. Aspirin, as you know, is acidic in nature, so whenever aspirin overdose occurs, it results in high anion gap metabolic acidosis because salicylate ion is now being added to the blood. Methanol poisoning and ethylene glycol poisoning also result in addition of acid to the blood. And in case of starvation, the level of ketone bodies increases in the blood, and ketone bodies are acidic in nature. Their anions will be added to the blood, resulting in high anion gap metabolic acidosis. And why ketone body formation increases in starvation? Because the body tries to provide the body cells with energy by using ketone bodies. And on the right hand side are the causes of normal anion gap or hyperchloremic metabolic acidosis, which are characterized by a loss of bicarbonate from the body, and this can occur in case of diarrhea, in which bicarbonate ions are lost from the gastrointestinal tract. It can also occur in case of renal tubular acidosis, in which the renal tubular cells are not functioning properly, resulting in decreased bicarbonate reabsorption from the tubular lumen, and this results in loss of bicarbonate in the urine. Now, a type of diuretics known as carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, they also result in bicarbonate ion loss in the urine, thus causing hyperchloremic metabolic acidosis. And in Addison's disease, when there is decreased production of aldosterone, this also leads to increased bicarbonate loss from the body, resulting in normal anion gap or hyperchloremic metabolic acidosis. So this was all about the different types of acidosis and alkalosis and the different compensatory mechanisms that come into play in order to correct the acid base disturbances. If you have any query regarding these lectures, you can mail me. Best of luck from my side, and thank you very much.